Will be. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Obeyemi. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of NAPE UK to this technical session. It's the second technical session we're having this year, and I hope that you will all enjoy the presentation today. We are planning a further 2 to 3 technical sessions for the year. One within this quarter, maybe another 2 in the third quarter. Also, we are planning to have an excursion during the summer to the British Museum of Natural History. And we've had a poll of our members. They've said that they would prefer to have it later in the summer. So we'll keep you informed on the date for this excursion. So I won't take too much of your time. I'm sure you're eager to listen to this presentation. I'll introduce the speaker. The speaker is very well known to me because we worked together for a very long time. Known him for about 30 years, almost his entire career in the oil industry. He worked for 15 years with Agip in Port Harcourt and in Italy, and then had 5 years in Dubai Petroleum, 5 years in Petronas, and another 5 years. Actually, I think it's 7 years, not 5, but he has 32 years about experience as an independent consultant. Now, he's seen different areas of the oil and gas exploration and production cycle. He's been involved in asset evaluation, operations geology. He's a very seasoned geophysicist. He's also done a lot of basin analysis, structural and sequence strat studies, lay fairway mapping, and has a very good knowledge of rock physics, pore pressure prediction. He's worked in different parts of the world, in the Niger Delta, the Anambra Basin, the Middle East, and the Far East. I'd like to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Ifeonu. Thank you. So Ifeanyi, over to you. I think you can share your screen.
Trying to find it. Can't find my screen. Okay. Doctor, can you share? I don't understand. Hello, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yes, sir. I can't find the screen.
Which one is it?
Okay, I'll go straight to the presentation outline. So good morning and thanks for having me.
Can you see, sorry, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
I can see
Go
us.
to the next one. Go to the next
Okay, I'll just
one.
make it as a slideshow from current slide, and then I'll go to the next one.
Next one, please.
Just a minute. Okay, so.
Next slide.
Yeah, just a minute. Okay.
Okay, so this is our presentation outline today. So it's, like you said, the topic is the isolated carbonate buildups within the South China Sea. So we are going to look at, starting, we're going to have a general comments on carbonates, see there how we can recognize them on seismic. I have one interesting example from Nigeria. So we see how it looks like. like it's offshore Dahomey Basin. Then we move into the South China Sea proper Sarawak Basin. It's an area that I've worked in, for quite some time, and is still giving. It's a matured basin. So we look at the petroleum system starting from the paleo environment. Then the important thing is how they used or how we use the exploration ideas of focus, plumbing, progrades, and gas halos. These are very, very interesting exploration ideas that was used or that were used to de-risk the petroleum system elements. Then, if time permits, we look at fast track interpretation, especially the uncertainties we encountered while exploring these carbonate buildups offshore South China Sea. Then we look at, then we compare our volumes. So, Dr. Nest. So, as we all know, carbonates, the first thing that we come to your mind is limestone. But there are lots of, but there are different types of limestones. So, the one that we generally know is the calcium carbonate, but we have an isomer of that is the aragonite, the same chemical composition with calcium carbonate. Then we have the dolomites, dolomitization, that is the replacement of the calcium by some magnesium to give you the calcium magnesium carbonate. Dolomitization is very, very important. Some people call it dolomitization. Then, generally, we all know that these are biogenics, like the coral reefs of Australia. We see them building. For the carbonate system to work, there are some environmental conditions that must be there. So you have the shallow waters. It must be shallow water. Then you have the poor siliciclastic supplies. So that's why you don't normally see carbonates forming, very close to the delta or within the delta, because we know that the delta, has some fast sediment deposition, lots of siliciclastics. These are very, very important things. One of the other important things is very, very warm condition. At least about 90% of carbonates, they form within the within a very, very high temperature area or warm conditions. About 5 to 10%, yes, we've seen them in temperate regions, but mainly we usually see them in tropics, or where we are recently having some El Nino, like within the Pacific that used to be cold, but because of climate change, we can now see some coral buildups around the Western Pacific. Then, if you look at, the classification, within the offshore locations, we know the fringing reefs very, very close to the coast. Some people call them bank. We did some exploration on bank deposits. Sometimes on seismic, you might not recognize them, but when you see what we call the so-called carbonate wings, we start saying, this might be carbonates. And at least almost all the carbonate banks that we drilled, they were carbonates. Most of them were not hydrocarbon bearing. Then you have the barrier reefs of Australia, which we all know very, very well. Then we talk about the patch reefs, the atolls, like if you go to the Pele ones, that is the Philippines. This used to be very, very, they used to, provide some disasters for some navigation in the good olden days. Carbonates reservoirs are important globally. We know the carbonates, the likes of Giwas, the Fates. So these have been given to the world, very, very, 60 to 70% of the conventional oil and gas. Like I said, you can see them in the Middle East. You have them in Kazakhstan, former USSR, Kashagan, important field, important oil field. Then where we are going to look at today, the South China Sea. Next, Doctor. Next slide, please.
Oh, it's frozen. Hello? Sorry,
Hello,
it's frozen. I don't know why. The screen is frozen. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Can anybody give us any technical advice on this one? My screen is frozen. Maybe I stop sharing and come back again.
Yeah, I think that's
Yes,
what you
just
should do.
you can escape.
Okay,
Stop sharing.
stop share and then come back and share again. Okay,
Yes, check the presentation before you share. Check it first.
okay, that's this one. Okay, can you see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is it not? It's still not moving. Okay. Just a minute.
You can disable the laser.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Sorry, it was okay. Sorry for that.
So, yeah, so it's one of those things, technology. So the most important thing is the carbonate phases. Using we found out that, using the sequence stratigraphy, especially the system tracks, and if we try to reinvent, the paleogeography, the sea level rise, we can try to classify, and it's very, very important because, you have the so-called, greenstones, the parkstones, the waxstones, and the mudstones. So most times when you look at them, you start seeing lots of things, especially, in their porosity and permeability, what sometimes we call the good rocks and the bad rocks. So if we go back in time to put in them in their sequence stratigraphic framework, we can see that, like I said, it has to be shallow waters. Remember, these are in the past, in the geologic past, there must be a platform, an elevated platform. And we have what we call, the startup. This is the carbonate factory. We start to walk. We have the startup, and as the sea level is rising, it's trying to catch up. So starting from the transgressive system tracks, then continue again TST. Then when it keeps up with the top of the sea level, then we say that we are keeping up. That's when you have the high stand. And this is about where you start having very, very good, the so-called parkstones and the greenstones. Sometimes or most times you can see that, because the carbonate factory is working very, very fast, is working very, very good. You have some subaerial exposures. This is when you have some of the meteoric waters, that is the rain waters, they come in, they start to dissolve. Sometimes they will have porosity and permeability. Sometimes they occlude porosity and permeability, like in Mishri Fateh. And when all these things happen, you start having some karstification. So karst, they also try to improve porosity and permeability. Then if they permeate, if they go in and they start to dissolve and they form cavings, in Mishri, in Fateh field, the good rocks were dissolved, within the cone, that is within the central part of the structure. So again, when this is happening, you can say, okay, now you are now within the falling stage sea level. You start having some fringing carbonates by the sides. So sometimes you see people, they drill, they don't find anything, they go to the sites, that's where they find their good rocks. So that is the so-called greenstones and the parkstones. So a subaerial exposure. Another important thing is the coming in of the progress. These are, the deposition of the clastics that will stop, that will kill the carbonate factory. When you have the subaerial exposures, you have some unconformities that might also end the carbonate factory. Or another thing that might drown it is the delta coming in, with the so-called progress. So if you look at this, where you have the logs, you have the mysteries, then again you have the, you have the TST, where you have the bad rocks. Then by the time you get to the MFS, it's always difficult to identify MFS. Some people call it maximum accommodation zone. It's very, very difficult. But that's when you start having your high stand going up. So, within the high stand area, you're going to have very, very good rock. That's when you have your parkstones and your greenstones. Then from there, you can start putting your environment of deposition, starting from the outer ram to the mid ram to the inner rams, then to the peritidals. So then again, you might have some, mesapta. So this is when there are, lots of salinity. The sea level is falling sometimes. Then you have a lot of, precipitation of sulfates. And also within this time, also you might have some, the so-called dolomitizations, because you are precipitating a lot of magnesium. Next slide, please. So interesting. So now we go to the seismic. I'm going to base my seismic morphologies on two end members, the pinnacles, just like the tower of a church, that is the belfry, and the flat top platforms. So I don't want to go into the rams or the fringing rams. These are, just let's look at these two end members today. Maybe if we still have opportunity, we can start looking at, there are lots of them. So, if you look at the first seismic section on your left, so you can see a flat and a tipping side. So the flat one is called a platform. The one with a pinching top is called a pinnacle. So most times the pinnacles, they have the riffle lithofacies, while the flat tops, they have the platform lithofacies. Most times we like to see the riffle, that is the grainstones and the packstones. Again, is also in some areas where we know that we are within the carbonate environments, we can easily see them on seismic high acoustic impedance. But again, if you're trying to reinvent a basin, where you are not sure whether you have carbonate in the geologic past, you start having problems, because if you look at some of these seismic, some of them, they might look like your tilted fault blocks, and also intrusives can also confuse you. So there are lots of things. Even evaporites, that is salt diapirs, they can also confuse you with some of these carbonates, because they all have very, very high velocity. So they will give you strong acoustic impedances. Again, you have to differentiate between the biohems, like the mond-like, and the sheet like the biostromes. Then another way for recognizing carbonates, strong acoustic impedance, in between, you have a kind of a uniform layer that is no acoustic contrast within it. That tells you that it's the same velocity, within the interior. But where you have different facies, again, you might start having some layerings. So remember, two end members, pinnacles and platforms. Rams, yes, lots of them within the Middle East, but we don't want to go into them. But all of them wanting, there must be an elevated antecedent platform that will help the carbonate factory to move fast. Doctor, next slide, please. Then we come back home to Nigeria. This is taken from offshore Dahomey Basin, Dahomey Embayment, offshore Nigeria. Is an open source, OPL 300. Is a seismic line from west to east, that is from distal towards the proximal. Remember, as you go proximal, you have lots of sedimentation, so they tend to kill the carbonate factory. The water depth here is between 1 to 2 kilometers. If we look at this, Doctor, please, okay, if you can see a platform. This is offshore Nigeria. So we have it, offshore Dahomey Basin. So underneath it, you will see a kind of elevated platform. Within it, you start seeing some faulting. So please, I'm just giving a caveat. Please, this is my own explorationist spore interpretation. If we start looking very, very close, you start seeing some breaks underneath it. That is what we call plumbing. So the plumbing will enhance migration pathway. We usually use plumbing as migration pathway. Around it on top, you can see what we call the gas halos. So that means that there must have been a charge. Remember, Sometimes halos can be good, it can be bad. Gas chimney is always bad because it shows that hydrocarbon has migrated out of the structure. But halos, you just give it that halo like a saint, and it tells you that there was a charge, and also the buoyancy and the capillarity is playing up. So phases, then if we go towards the
Sorry, we've lost you. Hello?
I think
Hello?
it's network.
Yeah. We lost him for a minute. I wonder why. He's probably still going on with the presentation.
No, it's actually his network. I'm sure he will come back.
Yeah. Is he still on?
No, it's not presently online. It's not online now.
I think we've lost him. So if you don't mind, I'll just give him a call. I'll just mute for a minute. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. He's trying to log back on. He lost connection.
Okay.
So he should be back in a minute. Okay. Oh, no, is he back? I can't see everybody.
Not yet.
Hmm. 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 Did we send him a new link?
No, it's actually the same one we use.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Okay, he's
back.
back on. Yeah. Okay, fine. Welcome back. So he's still trying to connect.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah, so so are you
So, yeah, I think there is, I don't know what's happening. Okay, anyway, let's continue. So, yeah, so we looked at this. Yeah, so doctor, please, next slide.
next slide? Okay. Okay.
So now we go straight to the South China Sea proper. So we are going to look at so we are here in South China Sea. So it's within the Sarawak Basin. This is an interesting tectonics. Lots of tectonics, lots of interesting tectonics. To the west, you have the East Natuna. To the east, you have the likes of the Philippines, like the Malampayas, the the Java Sea, the Sabah, and also the not basin. So you have a reef system, you have basin inversion, and you have the thrust of the Rajan Delta and all the tectonics around. So this is an area of interesting tectonics. Then south of it, just offshore the Kalimantan Peninsula, which is the Sarawak Basin. Then you have the the carbonate buildups. So this is a matured basin. It's been given lots of oil and gas. So all these gas exploration we are done so that we continue maintaining the feedstock we are giving to an LNG and very, very close to Bintulu. Next slide. So here within the Sarawak Basin, the provinces, you have the North, Luconia, you have the Central Luconia. This is where we are going to concentrate on. West of it, you have the Balingam, the West Luconia, and the East Natuna. So here, as you can see, the tectonics more or less underneath is the ridge system. Within the ridge system, you have the coastal plain, you have the shelly, you have the coaly materials that we are the source rock. So I'm going now straight to the petroleum system here, then the reservoir rocks. There was a kind of ancestral ridge system. On top of it is usually called the economic basement. So you know that ridges, they occur in episodes. So there was rift A, then rift B. So the rift B is the cycle 1, 2, 3. Then there was what they call the MMU, the mid-Miocene unconformity, which I call the breakup unconformity, that is not the spreading, the opening up, then the spreading of the South China Sea. After that, then the environment was conducive now for carbonate buildups, because as we can see in the next slide, that is the paleo environment, how the coast or how the shelf started changing direction, from northeast, or from northwest, then move to more or less east-west direction, which is more or less the present shoreline. So if we go through in the geologic past, so the opening of the South China Sea, that is about 27 million years ago. We were about a shallow marine opening up, then the influx of the sea, then the shallow marine. Then here, not much has been done here, but within the northern Luconia province, we have some discoveries. That is the pause. But again, it's the same petroleum system, because the source rock is still the same, which is the coaly and the shelly material, the coastal plain materials within the cycle 2, cycle 3. Then we go to about 17 million years ago. No, sorry, 24 million years ago again, maintaining the shallow water or the shallow marine offshore environment. Then we go back in 17 million years ago. If you look at the paleo shelf, if you look at the paleoshelf, you see that the paleoshelf has been changing until it got to about 10 million years ago, where it's more or less now equatorial. And that was what really is one of the things that started up these carbonate buildups, which is about, about 10 million years ago. So again, like what we discussed before, importantly, there must be very, very warm waters for carbonate, for the carbonate factory to work. Next slide. So again, this tells us that we are within the gas, because we've gone through, it's very, very deep, where the source rocks are, geothermal gradients, the rift system, they have very, very, I think they're about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius per 100 meters, if I still remember. So 4 to 5 degrees Celsius per 1,000 meters, 1,000. So, if we look at this, we can see that we are within the gas condensate, thermal maturity stage. So most of our work there, we are done to discover gas to support the LNG plants. Next slide. Next slide, Doctor.
Yeah, done it.
Next slide.
Next one.
Yep. Jump this one because I've explained it. So now we are now, looking at the plumbing. So now we're going to go into the exploration team that we use to de-risk the petroleum system. No, please, please, Doctor, go back.
This one?
No, yeah. So if we look at this, next slide, please.
Okay.
Go to the seismic line with the plumbing. Okay. So now we are going to look at the, go to the seismic line with the plumbing. This is focused.
Okay. Which one? This one? Okay, this one.
No. Yes.
No. This one.
Yes, please. Plumbing, potential deep migration from okay, this is the slide we are going to look at now. If we look at this, underneath the buildups, we can see lots of faulting. So there is what we call plumbing. So now plumbing team was used as a kind of proxy for migration pathway. Remember, the source rock is beneath down there within the rift system. So plumbing, so for you to really do this prospectivity right, and also in order to de-risk the migration pathway, you must map underneath the carbonates very, very well to see how the faults connect. And that is what we call plumbing. And here, because it's rift system, underneath it, the source rock is within the rift system. So this plumbing, this faulting, the way they're connected with each other will now form a kind of migration pathway from the source rock down there within the rift system. They take them all into the carbonate buildups. Next slide. This is focus. This idea was generated from hydrogeology, that is the drainage area versus accumulative focus. We've said about the platforms underneath. So as you're mapping, as you're doing your prospectivity work, look underneath these carbonates, you will see elevated sections within them. So this is focus, is accumulative focus. That means they're going to focus the source rock, they're going to focus the hydrocarbon into the reservoir rocks that are the carbonates. So again, this was used as a kind of exploration team to de-risk the petroleum system. So focus, very, very important. Next slide. Then the progrades. This is very, very interesting. The closer you are to the delta, the more you are amenable to have the clastics impinging on the carbonates, thereby breaching the traps, thereby breaching the structures. So how close your carbonates are to the progrades will also have effect on the prospectivity of the area. The best is where your progress, that is your clastics. There might be clastics, but let it be the bottom sets, not the top sets, because by Gilbert, delta definitions, when you get to the, you are getting more shelly as you move from top sets to the four sets. Then as you get, to the bottom sets, you are prone to shell. So porosity to porosity within the top sets, that means you're breaching. But as you go towards the bottom sets, porosity, which are the carbonates to no porosity, which are the shelly materials of the bottom sets, that means that you have a very, very good structure that has not been breached. If you look at the seismic, the team was to drill the tall carbonates, that is the tall carbonate buildups. And from what we know and from what we saw, the tall carbonates, the best we got were just few meters of hydrocarbon column length. And in the olden days, these were the carbonates that we had drilled first because, there we are moving towards volume. The tall carbonates, if you calculate the GRVs, they will give you bigger GRVs than, but when after about 10 years, we went back to a kind of redo, look at the basin again, we saw some of these anomalies and we concentrated in drilling all the small carbonate buildups, and most of them were hydrocarbon bearing. Next slide. So I'm going to run through this, this seismic interpretation, just pointing out the uncertainties. So lots of carbonate buildups, we drill lots of carbonate, but these 4 or 5 of them, very, very interesting. B14, B15, B16, B17. The first to be drilled around this area was B15. It was hydrocarbon bearing, but it has water contact. Then B14 was drilled. It was drilled field to spill, and we had lots of problems. I'm going to show lots of problems that we have. And then B16 was drilled very, very dry. B17 and B18 yet to be drilled because they are very, very close to the east. The Barren Delta, and the Barren Delta. So we say that we have lots of progrades coming in from the Barren Delta. So they were so the chance of success, we are very, very low. And as at the time I worked on this project, they were not drilled. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I think because we've lost about 5 minutes plus, we'll give you another 10 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
So this is B14. One of the biggest uncertainties was predicting the hydrocarbon column length. Lots of carbonates buildups, lots of them drilled, but we cannot predict. So again, robust seismic interpretation, because carbonates are very, very easy to drill. To map. You just take the top, you can see it, but there are lots of challenges, like interpreting the halos, that is the margins of the carbonates. You don't know where they are. They might be up, they might be down, and all these things that affect the hydrocarbon column length. If you see the hydrocarbon column length, there are variable. This B14, we thought that we are going to have about, at least we said, okay, from what we are seeing, let's take about 250 meters. But when we drilled, we could not drill out the reservoir. It was gas bearing till where we did the well. So based on our prognosis, the well plan was not that so optimal. Budget was not optimal. So it was a very, very big success, but we had lots of challenges. Next slide. So again, what we did, but these were now post drills. So what we did was to take the water gradient to predict. We predicted 250 meters pre-drill. By the time we drilled and TD, but we could not get to, we did not drill out. So we had to go back to rework this. We found out that we had about 600 meters of hydrocarbon column length. But if we've used the regional, if we've tried to use the regional gradient, the water gradient, we would have predicted it better. But this was what we saw post-drill. Next. Again, the talus, that is the margins of the carbonates. There are various, you can put them anywhere. It was a very, very big challenge, very, very big uncertainty. So you've got to do lots of interpretations. That is, the talus is more or less the foot of the carbonate buildups. They can be up, they can be down. You can start seeing lots of, because things are being eroded. I did not mention, what we call something like high stand shedding. During high stands, because of the waves, some of the carbonates are being eroded and being transported, to the foot, which is the talus. So it was a very, very big challenge for us interpreting the talus. So again, various interpretations. You have to come up with various interpretations. I think we had about 7 interpretations, for the margins of the carbonates. Next slide. Okay, again, is dedicated velocity buildups. Velocity model is very, very important. You don't use, we use the simple, we used a simple polynomial equation, but at the end, that was pre-drill. But post-drill, when we did, when we tried to bring in a lot of things, sonic logs, started seeing, different progrades on top of the carbonates, giving them their respective velocities, we were able to come up with a fantastic, I would say very, very, not so fantastic, but very, very good velocity model. So Doctor, go straight to the volumes. Okay. So finally, using the velocity model, we were able to do some probabilistic GRVs, and we come up with 2 models for the calculation of the volume. Next slide. So we have what we call a simple 1 tank and 2 tanks. 2 tanks means that within a carbonate, you have to subdivide them into the riffle and the platform. So, so that you can apportion the petrophysical parameters differently. Remember, I mentioned the riffle and fasces are better. So now you got to do your, volumetrics by 2 tank models, different petrophysical parameters for the reefs and different petrophysical parameters for the platforms. The reefs that are going to have better petrophysical parameters, the platforms, you try to degrade them a little bit, then you join them together in order to calculate your volume. When we were doing pre-drill, we used the 1 tank model, but later, post-drills, when we started understanding, some of these changes better, we had to redo some of these things. As we can see now, what we calculated. Next slide, please. So you can see post-drill, we have about 280 billion. But, sorry, pre-drill, we have 280 billion. Post-drills, we did, by the time we did a double tank, that is 2 tank, then we were able to kind of get the real quantification of the resources, which was about 2.8 to 3 trillion standard cubic feet of gas in place. So conclusion, next slide. So we can see carbonates are not, they are not difficult. They might look exotic. We have them in the Delta. We've seen some exploration teams. We have them in offshore Dahomey Basin. That is, we have them in Nigeria, offshore Dahomey Basin, using some of these exploration teams and minding these uncertainties. We can go back and apply them, within our own Dahomey Benin Basin. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ifeanyi, for a very interesting presentation. My apologies once more for all the technical hitches we have experienced in this presentation. That's because we're not located in the same place.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. We're on different continents and
continents, yeah.
different countries. So thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I hope you all found it interesting. So I'll try and do a bit of a summary of what he said, and I hope I'll get it right. So Ifeanyi started with doing a summary of the different types of carbonate buildups, talked about how we recognize them on seismic, emphasized the economic importance of carbonates because they give us about 60% of all the hydrocarbons in the world, and then gave us a sneak preview of potentials for carbonates in the Dahomey Basin, which, if that is true, if it happens, will be opening up a completely new type of clay in the Nigerian sedimentary basins. We know we have carbonates in other parts of Nigeria. On the Calabar flank, you've got the Famusing limestone. In the central Benue, you've got the limestones that are outcrop at Nkalago and so on. So could these be interesting exploration themes? We don't know. We don't have the data. But looking at the carbonates in the Dahomey Basin, we might be looking at a new clay type in Nigeria. Then he also talked about the relationship between the different stages, sequence stratigraphic systems tracks, and the reservoir quality, starting from the catch-up phase to the keep-up phase, subaerial exposure, and then the drowning phase, and how the drowning phase more or less switches off the carbonate factory because you have a lot of clastics coming in. Then he went on to the details of the geology of the central Luconia Basin, talked about the main carbonate buildups, which are in the middle to late Miocene, then showed us the paleogeography and how the interplay between clastic supply and the carbonate's productivity affects the carbonate buildups. Then he also talked about the petroleum system, the source rocks, which are predominantly type 3. And so that explains the amount of gas that they have found. Then he talked about migration focusing, where you have what look like structural highs. So the initial migration will be up the flanks of these highs, and then connecting the reservoirs through faulting. So some sort of what do you call it? Migration pathways along the faults. Then finally, he talked about some of the issues with the seismic very briefly. Then gave us a flavor of what the pre-drill trap sizes and reservoirs were, and how the drilling results changed everything and more or less tripled or quadrupled the reserves when they actually had the well results. So I guess the main thing which would come to my mind as a Nigerian geologist would be whether we have any potential for carbonate clays in Nigeria, apart from the Dahomey Basin. So thank you very much, Ifeanyi. I think we can now take some questions. Don't know, Amy, can you handle that? Because I can't see, I don't know where to find these questions. I know they've been posted.
So the first question we have is, how can the open source seismic data of the Dahomey Basin be gotten? Any link?
Yeah, I think you have to go back to DPR.
Okay.
I don't want to, because we know there are lots of sourcing data in Nigeria. But I have to tell you, the formal way is to go talk to the people in DPR. So they are the repository for the Nigerian data. They can help you out. This was, the mini bit round. That's where this was. They have it in the mini bit round. I think that's the much I can say about it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So you seem to emphasize on pack greenstones as the good reservoirs. What about the WAC mudstones where they are exposed to dissolution, as there are
Yeah,
cases where they form?
yeah, I can talk about the wax stones as good reservoirs, only fractures. Like the Najma Sagelu in Kuwait, within the Jurassic, I think that's where they are doing their stuff now. It's an interesting, if you can get something to read about the Najma, the Najma Sagelu. They are the source rock, and also they are now drilling there. They are doing some unconventionals. Also, I can tell you something in offshore, offshore UAE, the Salif underneath the Mishrif, which is the source rock, is waxstone. So most times the waxstones are bituminous. That is this time. I'm talking now about the Middle East. I'm talking about the Middle East now. So, in the Middle East, almost all the buildups, they are one petroleum system. You can get into a basin like Saudi Arabia, you have about 4 or 5 petroleum systems. So most of the carbonates, one unit, one full unit, the wax stones and the mudstones that is, that we are formed basinally. Most of the time they are, but now they're beginning to explore them by fracking them because again, they have, because they are fractured, most times carbonates are really, naturally fractured. And you have the 2 types of porosity, the matrix porosity and the fractured porosity. So, this is the much I can talk about the waxstones. Yes, like you say, dissolution can help. I know. I said a lot of things, but again, remember, when you look at the textural classification of the facets, the greenstones and the packstones, when you see them exposed, when you go for field walks, you see that they are very, very grainy. They look like sands. They have the grains. So, and that tells you that they have very, very good porosity. The waxstones and the mudstones, they look like shells. So again, these are the Dunham classification by texture. Okay?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, the other question that we've got here is, how do you de-risk atoll carbonates in terms of their thickness? Is it possible to know the contact between them and the volcanics atop which they usually sit?
Yes, this is where you have to reinvent the basin. I said something about reinventing the basin. So you've got to go to basin analysis and see how they come on. We did some work that was around that's the NatComSon. So we had to bring in a potential field and seismic. So you have to put them together so that we can differentiate, the so-called volcanoes from carbonates. So now you have to do some numerical analysis or numerical modeling, whereby you have to start looking at their textbook densities and see, magnetic susceptibility and the Booger anomaly maps. You overlay them, you look at your seismic, especially the velocity, you see how they relate. Thereby you can now start to descend. So yes, we've done some work whereby we have to merge both a bouquet, that is a potential field, and seismic to make sure we're able to differentiate between the igneous or the metamorphic rocks versus the carbonates. Are very, very interesting. So you need to source for more data. You need to start understanding them. You need to model the velocities of the carbonates. You need to model the velocities of the igneous rocks, that is the so-called basements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. How good are the porosity and permeabilities, and their distribution in the Dalbin Basin to justify good commercials?
Like I said, porosity, fractured porosity, and matrix porosity. Is the person talking about matrix porosity? I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So carbonates, if there are grainstones and packstones, they have
But I
very,
think
very high porosity.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they also want to see it based on data that you've seen. If
See, like
there's
I
any,
said, I'm not. If you want to engage us, then because now we are now asking some questions that are commercial, right? So it's not everything that that you just say out. So if you want to take it up, you can discuss with the NAPE coordinator. Then you can get back to me. Then we can talk. But for now, I can give a kind of a fiat. The greenstones and the packstones, they have higher porosity than the clastics.
okay. I think that would be it. Over to you, Dr. Wubi, if there's anything
Okay.
before.
So thank you, Ifeanyi, for the presentation. And I hope you all enjoyed the presentation. And we hope that Ifeanyi will come back again sometime to give us another insightful presentation. So thank you very much. And I think that ends this part of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so that I can sign off.
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah. So before we leave, we just want to quickly do the announcement, just to let you know the things that we have planned for the remainder of the year. So I'm gonna share my screen and then present it to us. Just a minute. Okay. So for our monthly technical business meetings, so we've just had um the NAPE UK Europe chapter, and yeah, we'll be planning others. I think like the chapter coordinator has mentioned, we're planning 2 other technical meetings for the year, which will be communicated later on. For now, yeah, we don't have um, for the Lagos chapter, they're planning something in June, so watch out for that announcement. Um, our NAPI Annual International Conference is going to take place on the 10th to the 14th of November, 2024 at a hotel, Hotel Lagos, Nigeria. And the theme is resolving the Nigerian energy trilemma: energy security, sustainable growth, and affordability. So we'll encourage to attend, and we can also participate by submitting abstract. So there's a call for abstract. We have the various sub-themes, which you can take a look at the NAPE website. So the NAPE website is nape.org.ng for details. But for the abstract, the deadline is the 31st of July 2024. And once you submit, it's going to go through review, and you'll be informed of acceptance on the 31st of August. So you're encouraged to submit your papers. So this is the full detail of the conference. So we have a lot of things planned for the conference. So there's a golf tournament, short courses, pre-conference workshop, management sessions, technical presentations, virtual field trips, African night, and award ceremonies. For companies looking at exhibiting, um, you could send an email to napiexhibition@napi.org.ng. The subscription deadline is the 1st of November. So you're encouraged as a company to exhibit. For registration, members, financially up-to-date members, pay 80,000 naira. We're talking equivalent of 60 £60, not up to £60 for this. So if you're interested, yeah, you could um, register. Yeah, you're encouraged to register for this conference. And for non-members, £90, which is still within the £60 range. And for lecturers, 40,000 naira. That's around £30. And for young professionals, that's up to 40. If you're less than 40 years of age, that's 40,000. And that's around that £30 too. Then student members financially up to date, so 20,000. So you're looking at around £15, less than £15. For international, which would be applicable to us, that would be looking at 250 dollars. But if you're a NAPI member, then the member fee would apply. So yeah, just to mention that there's an early bird, so take advantage of the early bird. That's until 1st of August. So here is just a snapshot of the exhibition floor plan. You can see that a lot of the spaces, exhibition spaces have been reserved. So it's first come, first serve. So the earlier, the better. And just to mention in terms of the cost, you're looking at 50 £60 per 60 pounds per square meter and for the fee. Yeah. And this is the contact information for more contact information here. So you can contact to do this. We have other activities as an association. So we currently have this challenge. It's called the Experience the Geologist Life Challenge. So it's for you to show us your day as a geologist, capture your daily activities in a 2 minutes video at the office and the field or at the lab. Post it on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And then tag NAPI Nigeria and use the hashtag at geologist life challenge. You have a chance to be featured at the 2024 NAPI conference with full sponsorship. Another challenge that we've got also is to unveil the truth about geology. So join NAPI's Of Course challenge. So submit a 2 minute video posting myths about being a geologist. Post a video on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Then tag at NAPI and use the hashtag Of Course challenge. So same price. You win a chance to be featured at the conference with full sponsorship. We always encourage to pay our membership dues. For active members, we're looking at 12,000 naira. And associate, so for active and associate 12,000 naira, that's around that's less than £10, and that's for a year. For student members, 2,000 naira, and that's like less than £2. And then for corporate members, 50,000 naira, which is less than £40. So you're encouraged to pay your dues. As if you have any challenges paying from the UK, let us know. You can speak with Dr. Christopher Iwobi, or you can contact me and I'll be happy to help. But this is the account details that you can pay your dues into. So yeah, for our monthly technical meeting, we grateful, we appreciate companies that partner with us and sponsor them. So if your company is looking at doing so, especially for the Lagos one, please contact the president-elect, Mr. John Bosco Uche F. Nape, for this, or you can speak with Mr. Florence Oswago for the NAPI Secretariat. So this is his number. We have the NAPI election plan for this year. And so just for us to know that, forms will be distributed. Nomination forms currently ongoing. So if you're interested, it's you could put in your nomination, and that would close. We expect nomination forms to be received by the 15th of May, and then publication of the list for elective positions would be done. So that's 1st of August, and then campaign starts also same time. Presentation of the candidates, so will last throughout the month of August. Then voting will begin September and last the 15th of October. So all these dates are this year. So it's this year that we're planning to do all this. And the elective positions, the positions are President-elect, General Secretary, Assistant General Secretary, Treasurer, Publicity Secretary, Financial Secretary, Editor-in-Chief, and Assistant Editor-in-Chief. So that's our announcement. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. So before we leave, we'll just pass over to Dr. Christopher. He will be to to take us through the next section, which has to do with the vote of thanks. We have the president of the association here, as well as the vice president. So I will just hand over to you. So over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Ifeanyi. We have the president of NAPE here, and I'd like to thank him for gracing this occasion, and also to give him an opportunity to talk to his members here in the UK. So, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iwobi, and a good day to everyone. It's a pleasure and privilege to be part of this April technical meeting. I want to express the gratitude of the executive and the board of trustees of NAPE to everyone who has been promoting the NAPE core values. We pride ourselves as a platform for exchange of knowledge, ideas, and innovation in our industry. And having a very detailed and technical section this afternoon is also a testament to what we cherish and what we believe in. So as an association, we will continue to create a platform where there will be cross-pollinations of ideas and also best practices. We want to thank you, and also be rest assured that the NAPI executive is well in support of all the chapters, and will continue to provide our support where necessary. Thank you to everyone that have graced this occasion. Do have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your words of encouragement. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the NAPE Vice President, Ehi Bazwaye. Ehi, you're welcome. I don't know if you have a few words to say, or maybe the president has already said everything. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So I think it's been an enjoyable afternoon. We talked real geology today, and I hope that the ideas that we heard during the presentation will stimulate us towards looking for new exploration concepts in Nigeria. I'm sure that we've still got a lot of hydrocarbons to find in Nigeria. We just need to have that mental shift, start looking at things that we have overlooked in the past. So I thank you all for this afternoon, and well, have a good day. Thank you.
So we've got the networking session. So if anyone wants to, yeah. So yeah, the networking session is open.
Okay, so for this one, we can switch on our cameras now.
Oh, yes, we can switch on our cameras, yeah. And yeah, the recording also can stop.
Okay, how are you guys?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir. Okay.
Hello.
I'm here with you, Drew. Good afternoon, Doc. I'm here.
How are you doing? So now we